What up, what up? How you guys doing? Just got back from the TDU. Figured I would share my experience a little bit. It was something that I've wanted to do for a while now, and I've been desperate to get some information that I'm not getting locally. So this was the perfect thing to experience, and I can say confidently at the end of the trip, I was more than happy that I went, and I'll probably be going next year, and maybe getting a little crew together and trying to go up.
Hey, who loves you more than I do, huh? I'd do anything for you.
Yeah, except to stop busting my balls. Come on, let's go up coffee.
Oh, you want to go to Dino or what? We'll go to Dino over there on the Boulevard.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
No, which time?
Rockwood Boulevard. It's
Over
open 24 hours. So. They got Danish there? Yeah, they got everything. Oh, good. Yeah, let's pick up some Danish for Bell.
How about that? It's in Chicago. You know, I drove up, stopped halfway in Pittsburgh, saw my dad for one night, had a beer with him at night, got a little Permanis. In the morning, had a little coffee with him, and then drove up to Chicago. Thursday night, I went to a little steakhouse around the corner called Gibson's. It was awesome. I put a little some pictures out on Facebook, and it was like an old school kind of steakhouse vibe, the old 70s music, 60s music with the checkered tablecloth and guy singing piano. I was talking to a few guys locally after I'd gone. They're like, hey, it's corporate, and you know, I get that. I wanted to kind of go to like a mom and pop steak shop or steakhouse in Chicago, but the convention's right next to O'Hare International at the Crown Point Plaza, and you know, it's about 20-minute drive from the actual city. So I just stuck around the hotel, and they had plenty of really good restaurants and stuff. So my first night was a blast, just going out. I got there were already people there setting up for the convention, and as soon as you get there, you feel this like welcomeness, you feel this camaraderie. There's guys out, you know, there are a few guys having some beers at the bar, other guys talking about stuff with their notebooks out and comparing notes, talking about the contract. It's a well-versed convention. It's not just like a big party, but it's not all stiff and just classes either. So it's a good mixture, and I was able to experience both of those things, so that was a good time. How did I hear about the TDU? We had the contract that was up, the UPS contract, and there was a guy in our local handing out leaflets and stuff outside the guard shack. And I knew that was a thing in a lot of locals, not really in ours, but it was just different because it wasn't like your business agent, and it was just some guy out there just promoting the TDU, promoting Teamsters, promoting handing out, engaging, and handing out flyers and stuff like that. So I went up and talked to him, and I immediately took to it. And he was doing that a lot leading up to the contract, because there was nobody else doing it in our building. And I looked at the top of the right, you know, little piece of papers he was handing out, and it said TDU on it. And I knew who they were, and they kind of had a stigma around them before. I don't believe in this stigma, but you know, they were kind of known as being like very militant, which they are, and very like radical maybe, were some of the words that I heard when I told people I was going to the TDU. You know, like, you know, they're cool and all, but you know, and they are all those things, but in a good way, because a lot of locals are very laid back. They don't engage with their members and stuff like that, and the knowledge is there to be shared. It just takes somebody to share it. And it was nice to see somebody outside of our gate doing that. So I participated with him, and a few other guys joined in, and it started growing, and we had a bunch of guys out there by the end of when the contract was up, on our own, engaging with the members, who we are. We're all members. Nobody's higher or lower. We're all rank and file. And just spreading knowledge and spreading camaraderie, spreading solidarity, you know. And that's really what the TDU I've learned in the past weekend that I was at this convention is really what it's about. That's really the vibe that you get when you're there. It's like a big family, and everybody's there's differences of opinions, but everybody has the same mindset. Everybody has the same goal, and it's really fun to have that energy and stuff around. And that should people take that home from these conventions and spread it out to the other members, and then it just starts like little sparks starts a fire. So I've been a shop steward for I guess a little over a year now, and I had the petition for that position. Usually there's elections and stuff like that the locals like to hold, but some locals start to veer away from that, and I didn't agree with that very much, as you know, and the members didn't really agree with that either, as you know, because we got a petition signed within 24 hours. We had almost every name on the center, which is about 100 deep, signed up for this petition to have a shop steward, so the members have a say who they want to represent them. And I ran and I won, and I'm really grateful for that. And after gaining the position, I was kind of left out to dry a little bit, and me and the other shop steward that won, in my opinion. But I'm gonna speak for myself. I remember the day that we had the vote, and we found out the results and that we won, and I was real happy. I was ready to get started. I was real eager to start learning about what I had to do. I know what to do, just not how to do it really, and I relied on a few guys that I know in our building to help me with the language stuff and writing and stuff, but I was never really taught anything about the position from our local. They didn't really want me to be a shop steward. And that happens in a lot of locals. At this convention, you get to meet a lot of guys that are maybe treated kind of like, I was using the term redheaded stepchild, they keep you like arm's length, and they just don't really want the problems or something. I don't know what it is, but you kind of get left out to dry like I did when I got this position. I was handed this little book here, which comes from the IBT, and gave a pat on the ass and said, good luck, right? So I was learning the hard way. I was thrown into the feet to the fire, right? And we picked it up pretty well that way. Everything from writing the grievances to, I didn't even know how to fill out certain things and how to have the meetings with management and stuff like that. There was no guidance at all, and I had to learn a lot online. I had to learn a lot from, luckily, the previous shop steward that we had that moved on to feeders was able to help me out a lot, and I was able to learn a lot about these videos that these guys make, including Greg Kerwood, and that gave me a lot of information to at least use. There were still a lot of questions in the air, and I was kind of like stumbling over a few things for a while, like trying to learn stuff, because there's no meetings, there's no shop steward. We really don't see our business agent that much, and when you go to these conventions, believe me, like when you start saying that stuff, people go, ooh, their asshole puckers a little bit, and but it's pretty common. It's pretty common. There's a lot of really good locals in our union, and there's a lot of really bad ones. And when you go to these conventions, you see both. And a lot of the stories that you tell with these guys over the course of 3 or 4 days that you're there, you really see the similarities across the board. You go, man, this sounds a little all too familiar, and it just happens. So the TDU is a great place for you to go and learn and connect with a lot of people, and learning is the biggest part of it. So me being a shop steward, not having any information, not having any guidance, nobody, I don't want anybody to hold my hand, but there's certain things you got to learn. I've been there a long enough time, 23 years, to know what the position details, but just the finer points and how to get things across, like writing grievances and stuff like that. And so these workshops at the TDU was mainly why I wanted to go, and I was not let down. I was not disappointed. This book here that I was given and a pat on the ass didn't do too much. I go to the TDU, right? This convention. This is the book I was given. This is the book I was able to pick up at the TDU. Now, I think this might be from Labor Notes. Yeah. So, Labor Notes is another organization that works with the TDU. And they're really big. They have a convention every year, I think twice a year. And I think they get thousands and thousands of members that go. Because that's not just Teamster oriented. The Labor Notes is just the global union. So they're there in conjunction with the TDU. They work together, and these are some of the books that I was able to pick up. Right. So I got this. I actually got this before, but they had this for sale there. I got some swag. I got my Troublemakers T-shirt. The first workshop that I did was a contract enforcement toolkit. That was probably one of the better ones that I went to because my boy Greg Kerwa was there. David Blink, labor attorney, and Sarah Rivard. She's at a local 135. There's a lot of people in these workshops that are business agents and stuff like that. It's not just like loaders and not just UPS in general. You know, I mainly focus on UPS because that is the biggest, and they make jokes about, oh, you know, tired of hearing about UPS because it is a big part of the Teamsters. Obviously, I think 300,000 out of 1.3 million members, so we do make up the bread and butter of the Teamsters. But this contract enforcement toolkit was very, very useful. Learned a lot from that. Got a bunch of notes. The second workshop I did on Friday was getting the goods to win your UPS grievance, held by two business agents out of Louisville. They were really, really good as well. As you can see, there was another one at the same time. I wish I could have went to, Just Cause, a guide for disciplinary grievances. You know, that all this stuff. You know, I wish I could have gone to numerous workshops actually instead of, but you had to pick because they had different ones set up at the same time throughout the weekend. But you're able to pick and choose which ones, and then what you do, you just go back next year, right? So yeah, the workshops ended Friday night, and then we had a banquet. Sean O'Brien was a guest speaker. Really inspiring speech. I like him a lot. I know he's gotten a lot of heat over the past month or two, you know, with his position politically. But today was election day, the day I'm making this video, and we see how that turned out. And to be honest, not to get political on this, because it's more of my first thing at TDU, my first TDU experience. But I'm glad that he has an olive branch out to Donald Trump. You know, I don't feel like Donald Trump's in any way pro-union, you know, it's just not a thing. But at least the olive branch is there. I'm going to say that. You know, he spoke at the RNC, and even though sometimes you don't agree with people, at least there's an open line of communication. So I'll leave that at that. I had the dinner with Sean O'Brien. That was great. Met Fred Zuckerman and shook their hands. Tell them thanks for the good job they're doing, because they are doing a good job. You know, in my opinion, they're doing a very good job. The second day, went out to the bar that night, met a bunch of guys, had a few laughs after being, you know, even though the workshops aren't boring, they're still a little, you know, you're pretty busy at these things. And, you know, you're learning all day, and you're drinking a little coffee and then eating some lunch and then going back and learning again. And then they have the dinners, which is kind of like to sit down, relax, listen to Sean O'Brien, talk shit on corporate America, which I love. I'm right up my alley. They had an Amazon speaker as well, a guy from Amazon that organized the walkout, and that was a really good speech as well. All the speeches were really well done. All the people, you know, nothing. It's not super organized where it's like people were professional speakers and stuff like that. It's just people just talking, sharing their stories. You know, it's very like welcoming. You know, nobody's like, nothing has to be perfect. It's just kind of like, you know, you just talk out, you know, talk from your heart, and a lot of people gravitate towards that. So that was fun. The banquet was fun. Woke up Saturday morning, did a few more workshops, got a little nap in because at that point, driving from Philly up to Chicago, I was a little tired. Finished up the day with some workshops. Had another banquet that night with the speaker Sarah Nelson, President Association of Flight Attendants. My aunt's a flight attendant. I reached out to her from Pittsburgh. I was like, hey, you know this lady? And she did. That was also a very good speech. She don't hold nothing back. Let me just tell you that. She went in on that one. But very interesting events, very interesting workshops, banquets, and very interesting to meet a lot of the members from all over the United States that are really like-minded. You start talking to these guys, and you really get to you share some stories, and a lot of the stuff that comes, especially from UPS, because I relate to that more. A lot of that stuff, you know, you learn that stuff that goes on in your building goes on across a lot of buildings, and it's good to share that information. You know, it's good to have some camaraderie with guys that have been through the same things you have. And even if you haven't been through a lot of discipline, believe me, you probably will be eventually, because that's just the way UPS rolls. Um, there were a lot of Amazon guys there, which I liked. They're really reaching out to Amazon right now. They're trying to get Jeff Bezos start treating their members with a little bit of respect. You know, pay them a little better, which they deserve for sure. You know, they're all subcontractors. There was a guy that worked for Yellow. His name was Boogie. That's what they called him. Boogie, because his last name was Nut. Shout out to you if you ever come across this video, which I don't think you will, but he was a good guy. He's tall guy from Queens, and he had worked for Yellow, right? Which I don't know if you guys know what happened there, but that was a shit show that happened at Yellow. And he spent 30 years from there thinking he would be collecting a pension at 55, and he ain't. And he ain't. They took taxpayer handouts, bankrupt the company, and now he's left and he's working at Amazon. And as disgruntled as I would be after being at a company like that for 30 years and waiting on a pension that's not coming, right? As irate as I would be about that, he's up at this convention and working for Amazon and taking this information back and trying to give it to the new guys, the young guys at Amazon, to try to give them a little bit of perspective of how these companies work without unions. Even with unions, in Yellow's case, stuff can go bad, and we got to keep these companies accountable. We got to hold them accountable. And he's taken his time to spread this information. I really like that dude. I felt really bad for his situation. That shit sucks. And that's the kind of thing where you just give up. Man, I can't imagine being at some place for that long, expecting, you know, what you're owed, and it just not being there. And he's now working with Amazon, trying to spread information to the young guys. And I just give him a lot of credit for that, because that takes a lot of heart. And you know, that's the kind of guys that you meet at these conventions, and they stick with you. And you realize when you go back to your building where there might not be a lot of union presence, and you're able to stand tall with your chest out and know that there's other guys around the country that think the same way you do, that take charge and exert themselves and with their union behind them in order to keep these companies from abusing members, and able to help enforce the contracts. Because without that, you know, the company gets over on the union. When the members are engaged with the union, they're able to hold the company to a standard instead of the company just rolling over on the members. So that's what these conventions really are all about. I know the TDU, sometimes people kind of like snub their nose at it, and they just think, you know, just stay in your lane, right? You know, just do what your local says and your business agents, and you know, don't question anything, and you know, just do what you're told. And you know, that's not you're a member of the Teamsters. You're not just a member of your local union. You're a Teamster member, and you should be holding your local accountable. So if your local has a problem with it, and there's guys that have a problem with you going to places like the TDU, which is basically just Teamster members gathering together under a certain cause to promote the contract and to promote the solidarity, to promote engagement. If your local or the members you're getting some weird vibes from them about that, I wouldn't pay that no mind. TDU is a great spot, great place to go. I recommend. 5 out of 5. We'll return. I will be going back next year. They had 600. They had to have over 600 members this year at this convention. The number of members going to these has increased year after year. It's only getting bigger. It's only getting stronger now. You know, when we have the president of the IBT that's coming to these conventions and speaking at him, and they supported him throughout his campaign to take over the Hoffa administration that had shat on the members for so long. I really give them a lot of credit for that, the TDU. And Sean O'Brien knows where his strength is, and that's in the members as well. That's why he goes to these conventions, and he's traveling. He's constantly meeting with people, shaking hands, on the ground floor, and that's his words. It's not mine. I mean, and I really think he has something going there, because if you're connected with your members, the ones that that experience everything, and then you're able to take that information to your leaders one by one up the ladder, and then eventually get to the guy that's at the top, and he's the one down there shaking your hand at the same time. That's a great thing. So I think the Teamsters have a great thing going on. I think the TDU has a great thing going on, and I'd really like to have a few of our guys come with me next year. That would be great. It's not only just a good time, you know. The steakhouses alone are worth going to for in Chicago. But the workshops, you just learn so much, and you feel finally, if you ever been sitting there and just had that, like, constantly, like me, I just always had that, like, urge to say and do more, and I kind of knew that things should be said differently and done differently, but you're just kind of reserved, right? Because maybe your local doesn't really do things the way you think they should be done, and you're not right or wrong, and they're not right or wrong. Because the members are what make up the Teamsters. When you go to these conventions, you realize that maybe you're not the only one, and maybe you can be a little bit more outspoken, which you should be. And that's what I gathered from this convention. I'm really thankful for Greg Kerwood for inviting me out. I had a great time, and all the staff at the TDU. I met a bunch of them, and they're really good guys. All the members that came and made the convention what it was, and opened up the new guys that come, because there's a lot of guys that go there year after year and been going forever. And when you go there and you're new, you're welcome with open arms, and it was a great time, and I appreciate it, and I want to share that with you guys. So keep that in mind for next year. That's my little long video, I guess, 28 minutes. I'm probably gonna edit this down because I talk a lot. And yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one. All right, see you.